Hey, thanks again for pushing play on the Cognitive Fitness Coach podcast. So stoked to have you here, and I'm really excited today to speak to our next guest. This is Keith Eckert. Keith is from Arizona. Keith is a graduate of the Naval Academy, where he was selected for basic underwater demolition SEAL training, also known as BUDS. And Keith gave it a solid go with 3 tries, but eventually was medically disqualified. But Keith didn't let that slow him down. Keith got out of the military and got into endurance sports, into ultra endurance endeavors, things like ultramarathons, Iditarod Trail races, cycling across America, rowing a boat across the Atlantic. Really impressive stuff. Keith also got into humanitarian work and altruism, giving back, where he has raised close to $500,000 for veterans and first responder nonprofits, and has worked both in humanitarian aid with the Peace Corps and working with Guardian Revival 501c3. And Keith and I also currently share a board too with Consequence of Habit nonprofit. So really exciting. Keith, thanks for coming on, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, hey, tell us a little bit about early life. Where you're from Arizona. Whereabouts in Arizona?
Yeah, so I grew up in Arizona, lived in a town just outside of Phoenix called Chandler. Um, and yeah, had a pretty normal life, middle class family. My mom was a teacher. My dad, a factory worker, and they instilled hard work and playing sports and being active, and through them always kind of pushing me to play sports. And I discovered wrestling, and grew up wrestling and really enjoyed that. But I had a pretty normal, everyday middle class American childhood here in Chandler, Arizona.
Nice. Chandler, Arizona. Do you know John Vargo by any chance? Do you know who that
I do
is?
not know.
Okay. Because I'm pretty sure John is from that area as well, and he was a past guest. And John is a retired firefighter that went on to be a mindfulness meditation teacher, and he works for O2X Human Performance. Have you
Okay.
heard of?
Yeah, I know O2X. Yeah.
Okay, then so I'm pretty sure John, and I'd have to search through my memorabilia over here, but I think John was a Chandler Fire Department guy for a long time. And isn't there also a famous like story that's has some tragedy around it around Chandler, like where there was the fire that they were overcome with the firefighters? Is that the same place?
So there's so you're referring to can't think of the name of the fire, but it was just north of here, about
Yeah.
an hour and a half north. Everyone passed away, I believe, but one guy. And they ended up making a movie about it. I can't think of the name of that movie, but I think it was the Yarnell Forest Fire. Um,
Yes, all
it was
right.
about maybe 15 years ago or so. But
Mhm.
that's not too far from here, about an hour, I'd say an hour up north. But Arizona, we're such a dry temperature, dry heat that we do get a lot of forest fires. And that is a common profession for a lot of younger kids, is to do a season or two as a forest firefighter.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's something I would have probably try to get into too, if I was growing up out there, especially like the smoke jumpers and all that. Looks pretty exciting.
Exactly. I
Jumping
have
out
some
of.
friends that I went to high school with that are smoke jumpers currently.
Yeah, that's cool. I like how they dress up in like hockey goalie uniforms and just like send it static
Yep.
line right into the trees.
Yep.
They're not really finding a good drop zone or anything. They're just
No,
sending.
get out there and put out the fire.
It's amazing. Yeah, I spent a little bit of time in Arizona when I was in the Navy. I used to do some military free fall stuff down in just north of Tucson in Marana. And then, yeah, I was big into motorcycling back then too. I used to ride enduro bikes up around Mount Lemmon and such. I really enjoyed it. I remember the time frame too of like August, September seemed like be like the best time to be in Arizona. It was like the monsoon.
It's not bad, especially around Mount Lemon. It's a little bit higher elevation. That's a good time to get out and ride.
Yeah. And Mount Lemmon, I believe, is the most southern ski resort in the United States. Like, it's
It
amazing.
is.
Yeah, you go
Yep.
up to like maybe 9,000 feet AGL roughly or something like that. Yeah, so yeah, pretty cool. Now that I'm like talking about it, I miss it. I feel like I want to go back to Arizona for a visit. It's cool. So how did you end up? So you went from high school wrestling, and then how did you end up thinking like a guy from Arizona is going to join the Navy and go float around on big gray things in the ocean.
So being from Arizona, a popular person here and a hero of mine is Pat Tillman. Pat Tillman was the football player who he played at Arizona State University, got drafted, played for the Arizona Cardinals. So he spent his entire, you know, made it big here in Arizona with the college team, and then got drafted by the pro team here and played about 4 years in the NFL before 9/11 happened. He turned down a multi-million-dollar contract and joined the military, and ended up dying in Afghanistan. And I was in eighth grade when he died, and I was a huge football fan, and he just had such a massive impact on me. Um, to just see someone live with so much passion and so much, you know, you know, desire to, make a difference in the world. And I
Yeah.
saw that as something as like, I was drawn to his story. I was drawn to him. And so I kind of always, starting eighth grade, I'm transitioning into high school, and in my back of my mind, the military was always an option. It wasn't my main option at the time. I was so young, I still didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I would say around high school was when, that military was kind of creeping in the back of my mind. And then when I joined wrestling team in high school, we had a coach who was a Marine, and I really liked the way he carried himself. He was disciplined. Um, he was tough, and he would just kind of always tell us stories of his time in the Marine Corps and what it did for him. And I was like, he's someone I'm looking up to. He's a squared away guy. He's telling me how tough this thing is. And I was interested because wrestling was such a tough sport for me that I was interested in, like, oh, I like the challenge. So if there's this profession I could do in the military, it's people are saying it's tough. Two of
Mhm.
my, idols and heroes and mentors were in the military, and I'm just seeing that as a path forward.
Mhm.
And I also did decently well in high school as a student. And so when I was kind of a sophomore year, junior year, I was like, you know what, I want to graduate high school and enlist in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of really the only branch I knew. I knew of the Army because of Pat Tillman, but this one coach, just being a Marine, he was just kind of drilling it in my head, like the Marines are great and all this, and they are. So I was like, okay, I'm going to enlist in the Marine Corps. My
Nice.
other high school wrestling coach, both of his brothers went to the Naval Academy, and so he was like, hey, you do well in school, why don't you look at applying to the Naval Academy?
Mhm.
And so that was junior year of high school, and it was kind of like I was all in on that. I was like, I'm going to go to the Naval Academy. And so I started applying for my nominations through my congressmen and my senators, and
Nice.
I applied early on, and I got accepted right away. I didn't even have a nomination yet, um, and but my acceptance was to the preparatory school. There's a Naval Academy preparatory school,
Mhm.
so I didn't need a nomination yet. It was kind of like a fifth year of high school. Moved out to Newport, Rhode Island after I graduated high school, and I spent a year in their preparatory school, and I did well enough there to get my nomination acceptance into the Naval Academy.
Wow. That's amazing, man. So, like, yeah, I also had like people pushing me towards different branches of service, which is interesting. Like, my brother's a career Marine. He got out as a chief warrant officer, CWO4, and he was like, "Oh man, you want to go in the Marines? You want to go in the Marines?" And then I had a brother who was in the Navy. He was like, "Well, you should probably think of joining the Navy." And I told him like, "Oh, I go, just as a rebellion." I was like, "I think I'm gonna go to the Army," and they're all like, "No, absolutely not the Army." And then I joke, I'm like, but they both knew I wasn't smart enough to go in the Air Force, so neither one of them suggested that. But yeah, my brother in the Navy, he talked me into the Navy Seabees because when they mentioned the Navy, the first thing I thought of was these big gray boats, and I'm like, I don't want to go floating around out on a gray boat now. Anyone listening to this, like if that's your thing, good on you, but it
Yep.
wasn't. It's not my thing. So I wanted to join something that was a little different. So I got into the Seabees, but eventually I ended up working with special warfare, but we can maybe talk about that more later. And you as well. So you joined the Naval, you got accepted into the Naval Academy, but was it like under a contract of like, hey, I'm going to the Naval Academy, and you knew and you had a pathway to Buds, or how did you get to Buds?
No, so there is no guarantee. When you go to the Naval Academy, you earn your commission. You go through something called service selection, and that's where they look at the needs of the Navy, and X amount of students are going to go on a big gray ship, X amount of
Mhm.
students are going to go on a submarine. Some are going to go fly planes. Some are going to sit in the back of planes. Some are going to join the Marine Corps, and they have about every year about 30, 25 to 30 slots to send graduates to buds, newly commissioned officers to buds. And it's about a 2 year tryout. You have to try out about pretty much starts your junior year, but even sophomore year, you kind of do some PST, initial fitness tests and things like that. And from then on, they're kind of, rack and stacking you, ranking you, and seeing how you do. And there's a lot of factors that go in, not just physically. They're looking at your grades. They're looking at, your athletics, leadership, things like that. So my junior year is when I really started to get, well, my entire time, as soon as I always knew when I was going to the Naval Academy, I knew I wanted to get one of the contracts to go to Buds. So,
Mm,
I started working on that freshman year. I wasn't a great swimmer, so I started working on swimming, and I was still
mm,
wrestling at the time.
mm,
But I was also making time to get better at running and swimming, and the stuff that I knew was important to go to Buds or to be selected.
mhm.
So, junior year, they put you through a 30-hour screener,
Okay.
and instructors from Buds come, and there's about 150 kids that try out in the fall and try out in the spring. So you have about 300 kids trying out, and from that they take 90 kids, and they'll
Mhm.
send you to over the summer. They send you to basically do 1 month of what they call mini Buds. So
Mm,
out of that 300, I was able to get selected to the 90, and I did a month at Mini Buds, which is where they put you through a week. Back then, this is how they used to do it. They put you through a week of basically day to day of what a Bud student was doing. So you were carrying the logs, you're carrying the boats, you're doing the swims and the runs and the obstacle course. And then after that week, they attach you to one of the SEAL teams. And I was attached to SEAL Team One.
mm,
And from there, you go through interviews, and everyone's just kind of feeling you out.
mm.
And at the end of that process, they take the 90 students and they do a bunch of more interviews and things like that. And it whittles down. I think my year they took 28 of us.
Wow.
Um, so my whole time at the Naval Academy was kind of just a big tryout to get
Mm,
selected for Buds, because they're looking at your grades, and I didn't have great grades, so I knew I had to make up for it physically. So I got okay at running and swimming, and tried to play sports and just tried to be a member of the Naval Academy. So, and it's because I wanted to, and they
mhm.
look at all that, and based off that they select you. So I was lucky enough to get one of the 28 selections, my graduating class.
Wow, that's impressive. I didn't realize there was such a screening process just to get in for the officer side. Probably more strenuous than the enlisted side, I would imagine.
They
Because
they really, once you get picked, they harp like you have to make it. We're you and we are lucky as a Naval Academy students because we have a lot of information from people who have gone before us, like the graduating classes before us. Like, you kind of stay in touch with your upperclassmen, and they'll tell you what to expect, how to train, things like that. So the Naval Academy success rate of students that complete Buds is pretty high,
mm,
and they hold us at high standard.
okay. Wow, cool. So you end up getting there, and the first go around, you make it to Hell Week. Is that correct? And Hell Week
That's
is
correct. Yeah.
wrong. That is at the end of second phase. Is that right, or is that between first and
No,
second?
so Hell Week is in first phase. Once you finish Hell Week, that's when you can go to second phase. And yeah, so I checked into Buds in December of 2014, and I classed up um, with a class that ended that year, and we started into the year. I was in class 312, and
Mm,
yeah, it was I loved it. It was like everything I'd been wanting for, counting 6 years now, and it
yeah.
was everything I expected, and it was hard, and it was fun, and I made some of my best friends that I still have to this day.
Sweet.
It was a lot of some of the guys' wedding, and it was just everything I ever wanted. It was finally here, and I
Mm,
gave it my all, and I'm so excited I get to Hell Week, and then it's Sunday of Hell Week, and it's hard, but it's really awesome. And Monday of Hell Week, it's going great, and Tuesday of Hell Week, I started coughing up blood and started getting like kind of sick. And it was a common thing that was called SIPE. I knew I was starting to have SIPE. It happens a lot to Bud students, and so I knew, I'm like, okay, this is what's happening. I'm hoping to keep going, and eventually I couldn't go anymore. I got medically pulled
mm,
due to the coughing of the blood, and so I was like, okay, what's going to happen next? And I knew I'd get a chance to try again, or I was hoping to get it. Like I was hoping my performance had been well enough to get another chance. And
yeah.
sure enough, I got a chance. They kind of hold you like in a kind of like a recuperation phase for a couple weeks, and then they let you start to work out again. And I classed back up with Bud's class 314, and same thing. Everything, it was awesome. Made some of my best friends in that class, and you know, do the first couple weeks, and then get to Hell Week again. Same thing. Sunday I'm feeling great. Monday feeling great. Tuesday, I'm starting to slow down, cough up blood again. So I'm like, okay, not this again. And I am hoping not to get pulled. And we go to med checks and I get pulled. So I was like, okay, I was a little nervous because I don't know if they'll let me continue on or go to another class, if they'll send me to the fleet, what's going to happen. And
Yeah.
I was hoping my performance again did well enough to give me another shot. And I got another shot as my third shot.
Wow.
So now I classed up with Bud's class 316. And
Mhm.
same thing over. And this is the best I felt. I'm like, I'm going to make it. Same thing. So happy, like making some best friends. And same thing at the Hell Week. Sunday feeling great, Monday feeling great, Tuesday coughing up blood again. And I'm like, that's it. There's no way they're gonna let me get another class. And as I go to med checks, I get pulled again, and
Mhm.
I'm pretty disappointed. And I see the captain of Buds at the time, and he walks by, and he could see I'm disappointed. I was talking to one of my friends who was now in third phase. He'd made it, and I met the guy in 312, and now he's in third phase, and he's talking to me, and the captain pulls me over. He's like, he's like, don't get down on yourself. Like, we'll see what happens. And
Mhm.
then that following Monday, I had a meeting with him, and
Mhm.
he's like, "We're gonna give you another shot." So I had
Wow.
4 shots,
Oh, I didn't realize you
and
had four. This is
I had
totally
four
unheard of,
shots.
right?
Yeah, and
Wow.
on that fourth shot, they actually let me skip the first 2 weeks of first phase,
Mhm.
which was I don't know anyone that's ever done that, and I think it actually I probably should have turned it down because when I got back that third week, the instructors really the hammer down to you know welcome me back to the class, and same
Right.
thing I got SIPE again. So that was my fourth class. I'd been in Buds going on 2 years at the time, and pretty much was only in um, first phase and PTRR, and that was it. I went and saw a pulmonologist, and I had
Mhm.
something wrong with my lungs that actually even disqualified me from scuba diving. So that was kind of it. It was like, needs of the Navy, and, there's nowhere for you to go, and medically you're disqualified from this job. So we're going to let you out of the Navy. And that was in 2016.
Okay. Wow. It's a lot, man. So you said that you loved it, like you really loved it. Could you like maybe articulate like what was it? Like if you could boil it down, like what was it that you really loved the most about being at Buds?
What I loved about it was one, the camaraderie. I've never experienced anything like it. There's the phrase misery loves company,
Mm,
and everyone is going through pretty much the same exact experience.
mm,
We're all waking up at pretty much the same time. We're all getting beat together. Some people get maybe beat a little bit more based off their performance and things like that. But it was impossible. You couldn't make a tighter group of people no matter what. Like every time I class up to a new class, by the time I was in Bud's class 316, I didn't know a lot of people, but
mm.
you immediately make, great friends with them. So I love that aspect. I
Yeah.
loved the aspect of um, rising to the occasion. The instructors it's their job to make you fail at everything, just make you uncomfortable, make you miserable. Um, and rising to the occasion to their expectations, because those are the guys that like I wanted to be, like I wanted to be those guys. So I wanted to, it's weird. So you're trying to get their approval, you're trying to, they're setting a standard and it's your job to meet that standard. So I liked that. I liked having a bar to shoot for. I liked being held accountable by my buddies.
Mm.
Uh, yeah, I'd say that would be, to answer your question, that would be the number one thing is the accountability. You can't
Really?
slack off,
Yeah.
and if you slack off, like your classmates are going to hate you, the instructors are going to like beat you. So I really liked being held accountable for something,
Right.
and then rising to that standard that I was held accountable to.
Right. I've never seen it in such a way as I've seen it in naval special warfare is this team aspect where the team is before everything and the mission before everything. And probably one of the worst things you could be called within naval special warfare would be like a one way. They would say this guy's only out for himself. He's a one way kind of guy. He's not a team guy, right? He's
Yeah.
all for himself. Like I remember being told when I worked with special warfare, it was like, hey, before you leave for the day, like you need to go around and you need to talk to every one of your buddies and every one of your teammates and make sure they don't need anything from you, before you cut out of here, and it was just like, and it was also kind of like with like how we had the priority of things, like how we took care of things. We took care of the team gear first, being like the boat, the guns, the radios, the things that's going to benefit everybody, right? and then you took care of your gear, the stuff that's going to keep you around. Then you like took care of your buddy, and I said, "Hey, do you need anything?" And then like at the end of it, you're like, "Okay, now you can go take care of yourself. Now you can go have a shower and a hot meal because you've knocked out all these other things. Like you checked off all the boxes." And that's something that like I kept, man, for the rest of my life. Like I'm all about like pushing forward with a team. I love it. And I think, would you agree that this like translates for you right into endurance sports? It's probably why you got into endurance sports. Is it as well? Would that be fair to say, or?
Yeah, that's fair to say. And it was something that I had always had my eye on. I read a book in high school called Born to Run. So in the back of my mind, it was, I was just blown away. I'm like, how do people run hundreds of miles? It doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to try this one day.
Hmm.
And, once you get into the civilian world, and I'm sure a lot of veterans see this, and anyone can see this, like if they're, if they've been on a high performing team or been part of a team and then, or worked in a job where it was a team oriented job, and now maybe they're working for themselves, or that if they're in the military and they're getting into their civilian life
Yeah.
and no one's counting on you anymore, it's
Mm,
almost like you have to have self accountability. And I think ultra marathons and endurance racing does that because, yeah, you could probably go run 100 miles without training hard, but you got to do some training. You got to be somewhat of a runner. You got to hold yourself accountable. If I
yeah.
sign up for a race, I have to hold myself accountable
Hmm.
to do the training and get the job done. And it's no longer a team, but I'm holding myself accountable to accomplish something.
Yeah, I'm right there with you because when I left special warfare and went back to the conventional forces after being there for 11 years, like I needed something. I needed some type of like, and again, nothing against conventional forces. If you wanted to stay in the conventional CB battalions, good. But I wanted to do more. And I felt like something special and exciting, a little crazy. So that's how I got into doing direct combat support with special warfare. And then when I left, like it was like something was missing, and it was what was missing is I didn't have these big, huge challenges anymore. And just like you, I heard about the book Born to Run actually on my last deployment in Afghanistan. And how I found out about it is pretty funny. Is like there was some guy, and if he's ever listened to this, I used to call him Flando Flav, and he was unique, really great guy, heart of gold. But he was like cutting up car tires in the shop, and I was like, "What are you doing, dude?" And he was like, "I'm gonna make sandals." I'm like, "For what?" And he's like talking about this Born to Run thing. He's gonna make sandals out of old car tires in Jalalabad, Afghanistan. And he was gonna start running in these sandals, but it never worked. He just like smoked himself out. They're steel belted, like it was not a good idea. But so yeah, that's how I heard about Born to Run. And then I think it took a little while until I actually read the book. And then I was again on a deployment on San Clemente Island, of all places off the coast of San Diego, where Buds does third phase, right? And I'm out there working in the quarry in the conventional CB world, and I'm like going nuts. And that's where I got into endurance sports. I'm like, I got to do something, man. I got to train for something. I need some type of challenge. I need some type of suffering, um, other than just boredom that I'm getting, being on San Clemente for 7 months. So I ordered a pair of running shoes and some nutrition and a water bottle and trained for my first marathon there. And that was a decade ago now. So yeah, but I liked it because of the training was kind of like a workup, and then the race was like the big mission. And then after the big mission was done, then you had some time to, like your home port where you would be back home, resting, recuperating, and eyeing for like, what's the next workup? What's the next mission? Well, let's go back a little bit and talk about like getting out of the Navy. What was that like for you? Was it?
Getting out of the Navy for me, it's easy for me. I'll openly say it was really hard, and not in the sense that I didn't know what I was going to do next because I kind of lined up a job before I'd even gotten out. I started talking to some mentors and was able to line up a job. So I knew I had a job lined up that
Mm,
kept me in San Diego. So I was excited about that because I really wanted to stay in San Diego. It was hard for me because I lived with a bunch of guys who were in third phase going into, SQT, and those are my best friends. And so they're continuing the dream that I wanted, and I'm not. And I
mm,
I would I got into, I would say, partying a lot harder at like right around there.
mm,
And I swear there was just a fork in the road, and it was like I remember it was like New Year's Eve 2016 going into 2017. And I remember it was January 1st and I was out at a bar and I left early. I like didn't even want to be there anymore. And I woke up and I was like hungover and I was like, and I'd already done one ultra at that
Mm-hmm.
point. I'd done a 50 miler. So I'd gotten out, done a 50 miler, and I was like, you know what, I have to, because it was easy. I could have just been like the party guy going to the bar every weekend and seeing my buddies, or I could train. And I kind of, a little bit, I did a little bit of both. It was like, but it took me a bit more time to shake away the party side and pretty much focus more on, hey, the priority is fitness and it's endurance, it's pushing my body rather than going to work Monday through Friday and then partying on the weekends. So, but it was hard because all my buddies are coming back from, they're in jump school, and one of my best friends is, we all live together and he's the room next door and he'd come home and he'd tell me about jump school. And
Mm-hmm.
just like, it was like, I wanted to be there too, but I'm not. So that was hard.
Yeah.
But it, I would definitely say I was for a couple weeks really like, woe is me. But
Mm-hmm.
I quickly realized it's just not gonna, I won't ever be successful. And it's like, I got to close that chapter and be, okay, look, it didn't work and that's fine. And
Yeah.
now I can do something else. And actually it was, um, someone that we mutually know now, Kevin Stark, and he's a huge mentor of mine.
Yep.
And he had said once that, like you guys got to figure out, like kind of always plan for the future. What are you going to do next? I remember him saying that if the greatest thing you ever did in your life was become a Navy SEAL, then you lived a boring life because you're still going to have 40, 50 years of living after you become a Navy SEAL. So,
Right.
you always got to be improving and, shoot for the next higher standard in life. And so I kind of thought about that and was like, you know what, like, okay, not being the Navy SEAL that I had wanted to do since high school, really.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I got to close that chapter and now do something else and figure out what that was. And it took a while to figure that out, but I knew like staying physically fit and doing endurance sports would help me stay kind of on the straight and narrow, if you will.
Yeah. So that's yeah, that's amazing, man. So that's kind of like a little turning point there of like it could have went the other
Definitely huge, huge
way.
turning point.
If it went the other way, we probably wouldn't be on this call right now, right?
Nope.
You know,
No.
you're sitting in a bar in Coronado right now
Yeah.
telling young bud students like, I was there once and I
Yeah.
went 4 hell weeks or something.
Yeah.
Right. So as you said though, a chapter in the book, certainly not the whole book. And now you're getting into endurance sports, more into endurance sports. Like you've done a 50 miler, but what's the next thing? Do you continue running? Is it 100
Yeah. Oh,
mile?
yeah. It was, that 50 miler took it out of me. I was so beat up. I could barely walk. The next day, my ankles were so swollen and bruised. And
Mm,
in my mind, I'm like, that 50, I thought I was really fit. And that 50 miler destroyed me. And I'm like, how do people run 100 miles? I can't fathom it. And since I can't fathom it, I have to try it
right.
because if, in my mind, if someone else can do it or if it's been done, I have a shot of doing it. I could train, I could see what they did and I could do it. So it was shortly after that 50 miler that I started looking at 100 milers, and not too much longer after that 50 miler, I'd signed up for my first 100 miler and didn't know anything about training. I barely knew anything about the sport. My friend was supposed to do that 50 miler with me. He ended up getting like appendicitis or something. He couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And so I was actually not going to do it. And it's funny, my boss at the time, the guy that I had got me the job to stay in Coronado, I didn't even have a car. I like didn't make a lot of money, so I sold my car and
Right.
just wanted to stay in San Diego. And so I didn't have a car. I didn't have any way of getting to the race. But I told my boss that I was going to run this 50 miler. And he, very successful guy, he drove a Maserati. And he's like, you could take my car. And so for that first 50 miler, I'll never forget this. I drove a Maserati, and the last 2 miles is all dirt road to get to the start line. And I pulled up in this car. I was, 25 at the time. I'm sure people looked at me like, who is this punk? And finished the race. But like I said, it beat me up.
Yeah.
Drove home uh, and it was in my mind where I'm just like, so I could barely drive the car. I was so tired and beat up. And in my mind, I'm just thinking like, how do people run 100 miles? And so
Yeah.
I was like, I got to find a race, and ended up finding a race and still didn't know much about training, didn't know much about nutrition.
Mhm.
I mean, mostly my training was lifting weights. I was really into like weightlifting then. And
Mm.
but I just knew that if anyone else in the world could do it, I had a shot at finishing it.
Wow.
So I gave it a shot and I did that 100 miler, and then I was just totally addicted to the sport of ultra running.
So yeah, just for anyone listening at home that's like, wait, 100 miles, like how do folks run 100 miles? Well, they do, but it's also a lot of walking, I should say.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and they're mainly done on trails too, which is interesting. There are some road 100 milers, which would be really rough. I did 100K once on the road, and it was tough. It was my, of course,
Sounds terrible.
my fastest 100K, but yeah, it was it was not
Yeah,
a
the
whole
knees are just
fun.
screaming
Oh
afterwards.
my God, it was just like constant left, right, left, right, left, right, same muscle groups just getting hammered. But yeah, so they do go 100 miles, but there's also aid stations. So there's places to refuel, there's places to fill your water. They're usually wearing a vest, carrying a bunch of things on them, maybe some survival type stuff, first aid type stuff, maybe some poles to help them in some of the steeper climbs and such. But they are moving their body 100 miles over the course of the really fast folks are doing it in less than 24 hours.
Yeah.
Uh, I think average human beings are probably doing it maybe 30 to 48 hours. I don't know, depending on the course. And I say average human beings like an average human being is going out and running 100 milers, but probably not. But yeah, so you've done 4 or 500 milers. How many have you done at this point?
I've done probably five now.
Yeah,
Um, and it was right after that. So in the similar mindset of, I had just run 100, just completed 100 miler. And it was that the previous year or previous 2 years where they had invented the 200-mile races.
of course.
There was Bigfoot 200 was the first one.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to sign up for that. I got to do it. I got to do it. And then, but that year was the first year they were doing the Triple Crown of 200s.
Oh yeah.
So Bigfoot 200, the Tahoe 200, and the Moab 200.
Yep.
And they were all a month apart, exactly 1 month apart. And so I was like, and people were signing up, and it was just blowing my mind. I'm like, how is anyone going to do this? And I looked to sign up, and it was very expensive. And
Mhm.
but I'd been telling that boss who was a mentor of mine, I was like, I want to do this 200-mile race thing. And then I saw how expensive it was, and I really wasn't making much money at the time. And he's like, "Oh, you gonna do that 200 mile? You can do that." He was telling people like, "Oh, this guy's gonna run 200 miles," and he was asking me about it, and I was like, "I don't think I'm gonna do it. It's like really expensive." And he goes, "Well, I'll pay for it." And I was kind of like, "Oh crap, now I have to do it," because that was kind of my excuse almost not to do it. I was like, "I can't do it. It's
Right.
expensive, and the travel and all this stuff." But he was my boss, saying, "I'll pay for it. I'll give you the time off, and go do it." So he really like just did such a solid for me because I went and attempted it. I
Yeah.
finished the first one big for 200, totally underprepared, didn't know anything about drop bags or anything. And it was a point to point race. So it was, 200 miles point to point. You never go back to the same spot. And I had a terrible jacket, didn't know anything. It rained a ton. I didn't have a real rain jacket. It was miserable, but I finished. And everyone was saying, oh, Bigfoot's the hardest. So I was like, oh, wow. So then a month later was Tahoe 200. And I was so beaten up. I get to Tahoe 200, and I got at mile like 187. I missed the time cutoff, so
Oh,
I didn't finish Tahoe 200. I got about 187 miles of the. It was 211 miles total. Um, and then it was kind of like, okay, like, am I going to continue on to Moab? I was like, well, I paid for it and I got to do it. And, I didn't finish the Tahoe 200, but I'm going to try for Moab. And I got to Moab, and I had a much better strategy, better gear, and I finished Moab. Um,
nice.
so yeah, of the Triple Crown, I finished two of the three.
That's amazing. And then you've also got into Iditarod, and
Yes,
not with a sled and not with dogs. You're
yeah,
walking. Is that right?
correct. Yes,
Oh
correct.
my
Yeah.
God. So anyone that doesn't know, and I'll try my best to explain Iditarod, because and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it goes from Anchorage to Nome. Is that correct?
Just outside of Anchorage. That's correct. Yeah, just outside of Anchorage.
And that's like
So
a
it's a 1,000-mile
thousand
trail.
miles total, 1,000 mile trail in the
Yeah.
winter,
Yeah.
sub-zero temperatures, snow, wildlife. Yeah. So what what was that like? Tell us a little bit about that adventure.
Yeah, so in 2017, I saw a Runner's World magazine article, and it was a picture of a guy running, pulling a sled in like full winter gear in the snow. And I'm like, what is this? And it said, I think the title of the article was, um, it was like I think it might have been called like mushing without the dogs or something like that. I forgot the exact, but I was just so I read the article and it was explaining the Iditarod, and I was like, I'm gonna do that one day. I have to do that. But there was kind of a lot of like again, because I couldn't fathom it. And so for the fact that I can't comprehend it, I have to try it just to know what it's like. And so that was in 2017. I really didn't know how I'd ever do it because you had to do a lot of like meet some certain requirements, do some certain races in the winter, and I just I didn't know anything about winter ultra running. I just didn't know anything about it. But in the back of my mind, I was like, I want to do that race one day. And
Mhm.
then it was 2020 or 2019. And so just a couple years later and I was still running ultras, but kind of, I don't want to say getting tired of it, but just
Mhm.
wanted a new challenge. And
Mhm.
but my roommate, who was in the SEAL teams, he comes down one day, we're having breakfast. He's like, man, I need something hard to do again. And in my mind, like it kind of clicked. I was like,
Gotcha.
okay, let me reach out to the race director because he went to Alaska and he's got his winter survival training and all this stuff. And I
Mhm.
have the training of being an ultra runner. So if we combine our skills and we stick together, maybe the race director will let us do this race together. So
Nice.
I called the race director, Kyle Durand. He's best race director I've ever dealt with in my life. This guy's amazing. Um, he happens to also be a Naval Academy graduate. I didn't know that at the time. I call him, kind of give him my story. I give him my buddy's story, and I say, we'd really like to do the race. Is there any way you can let us in? Like we haven't done any of the pre qualifications, but if you could think about it. And he's like, okay, I'll give it some thought. And about a week later, he calls me back and he was like, yes, I'll let you guys do it, but you have to stick together. If one of you drops, that means you both drop. You're both out of the race, and we're like, perfect, just giving us a chance. And
Mhm.
oh man, if I wish he was on this call right now because he tells people now like how unprepared we were, and we were grossly unprepared. We just didn't know. I mean, my buddy, he went to Alaska for winter warfare training, but he went kind of like in the summer months. It was a little bit, it wasn't that cold, and
Okay, yeah.
um, the Iditarod, unlike any other ultra marathon race, it is very hands off. It is the aid stations are not really official. There's checkpoints you have to kind of make it to. The route isn't marked. They're not coming to save you if something's wrong. It's like you have to really it has to be like a dire situation for them to save you. You could use your Garmin InReach and call SOS for help, but um, it's everyone is pretty vetted, pretty hard to even get into the race. And so
Mhm.
here me and my buddy were coming from San Diego, really no experience in the winter. I'd never even worn snowshoes my entire life, and almost that entire race I was wearing snowshoes. Didn't even know how to put them on. Like it was, we were so out of our element, but we worked together.
Yeah.
We made it every single day to the checkpoint we had to get, and they'd be 50 miles, and you're getting maybe 2 miles an hour. So to go 50 miles, it takes a long time. So it took us 10 days to finish. We finished dead last,
Mhm.
but we never quit, and we had so many mishaps that entire every couple of hours something was going wrong. Our stove broke, our water bottles froze. The last night we were on the race, we had 50 miles to go. We get about 26 miles, and we could have kept pushing, but it was getting cold. And like, you know what? My buddy's getting tired. I'm getting tired. Let's just one last, couple hours of rest, and we'll continue on. And so you just
Mhm.
sleep in the snow. You kind of, pad out some camping spots, and you have your bivy bag and ground pad. And so we sleep for a few hours. And that night, my buddy's ground pad popped. So
Oh
now
God.
as he's asleep, he's falling asleep on ice. And that was the night it got down to negative 50 degrees.
Oh my
Um,
God.
so he wakes me up kind of screaming. He's like hyperventilating. I mean, he's really shivering and we don't know what to do. So we start to we get all our clothes on and get out of our sleep bags and just start running and pulling our sleds and running, trying to get him warm. And he's
Mhm.
struggling. And luckily we had this thing given to us by a seasoned racer who knew what he was doing.
Mhm.
He had dropped from the race and he's like, hey, do you guys have like um, it's almost like it's like a tarp that you can pull really tight over yourself. So do you guys have one of these? And we're like, no, and we're getting ready to leave. He's like, just take mine. I didn't want to unpack my sled. I'm like, we're already packed up. And he's like, just take it. And so I kind of put it in my jacket or threw it in my backpack. And
Mhm.
less than 24 hours later, we were like
That thing.
needing that thing, using it. And it kept us so warm because we were huddled together in this little
Yeah.
safety blanket. And it kept us warm and we warmed up. The sun finally came up and got to about, minus 10 instead of minus 50. And we were warm inside our thing. We finished the final marathon, final 26 miles, and it was the greatest feeling ever. We couldn't believe that we'd finished it. So that was my first Iditarod experience,
Mm.
and it was brutal, but I knew that people attempted the 1,000, and I was like, I got to give that a shot. And so everything I do is kind of just like, and when I hear about something a little bit bigger, a little bit harder, I want to try it, and that's how I attempted the 1,000.
Wow,
Because
dude.
to attempt the 1,000, you have to complete the 350-mile version.
Right.
So we finished the 350-mile version, which made us eligible for the 1,000, and I signed up the next year.
Nice. Man, that's crazy. I I want to keep going and talk about your endurance feats, and we also need to talk about your altruistic things. But can you just maybe like, I think it's like curiosity is what's driving you to like keep doing the next hard thing, right? Would you agree? Or because
Like it's funny. I've never used that word for it, but
yeah,
when you just said it, it would like kind of like light bulb went off. That's probably exactly why I'm doing it because it is curiosity. Because I'll just kind of right. I did running for a long time, and I was like, that was cool.
yeah,
Um, but I don't want to say all 100-mile races are the same because they're not.
yeah,
The Iditarod changes every year. The weather conditions are different. The trail changes. But once you do it once, you kind of know what to expect.
hmm,
And I think there's the curiosity of, oh, what's long distance bicycling like?
right,
Okay, let me try it because I've gotten comfortable. I
mm,
built a comfort zone in ultra running. I've done a lot of the races. I've done mountainy races. I've done flat races. I've done cold races. Um, okay, that comfort zone has been built. It's a little hard to break out of that comfort zone. So how can I break out of my comfort zone? I was like, well, I don't really know how to ride a bike well. Never
yeah,
changed a tire in my life. Like maybe I try this ultra cycling thing. So it's that curiosity of, hey, like
right,
I know running is, let me try cycling or let me try swimming.
yeah,
Um, that went to the rows. I'm curious about it. And so that the way when you said that, that's exactly what it is. It's definitely curiosity.
yeah,
And then holding myself accountable. It's like I said I'm gonna do it. I have to
yeah.
give it my best shot.
I love it because I think oftentimes when we hear about these ultra endurance events, like some people may think like, what is this person like? Where are they running from? Like, where's their demon? Like, what's wrong with them? Where's their trauma? Like, what are they trying to escape from? What are they trying to prove to themselves and others? But for you, it seems like it comes from an altruistic endeavor and just the curiosity of what you are capable of and what you can continue to do. So you never changed a bike tire, but then you rode your bike across America, right?
That's right. Yeah. And I will admit we did have bike mechanics on that trip. So thankfully they took care of all my bike problems.
So you still don't know how to change a bike tire?
No, I do. About a year before that race across America, a buddy of mine had said he wanted to try something hard, something like ultra, and I had
Mm,
found they had just created the 9/11 Memorial Bicycle Trail, and it starts in Manhattan. Well, you can start at any of the memorial sites, but we started in Manhattan at the World Trade Center, and we biked down south to the Pentagon, and then rode the bicycles to Flight 93 Memorial in Pennsylvania, and then back to Manhattan at the World Trade Center. So that's about 1,100 miles. He had also
mm,
never changed a bike tire, and so day one, boom, flat tires. So we ended up getting a ton of flats that trip.
yeah.
It was definitely an endurance event, but we took it slow. We wouldn't start each day till about 11 a.m. We'd go to about 7 p.m. and we eat lunch and dinner along the way. It was 1,100 miles, and we did it at about 100-mile a day average. It was hard. I mean, we were putting
Yeah.
in 7 8 hour days, 11 to 7, 11 to 8 p.m. and um, but it was really easy riding. It was gorgeous. It was a lot of rails, trails, and things like that. So that was my first bike endurance event. But we had a support vehicle, and we'd stay
Yeah.
in hotels every night. So
Mm.
so I learned to change a tire on that trip.
Awesome. Yeah. So then that brings me to the next thing is to talk about with the endurance events is this row across the Atlantic. And I know the backstory a little bit, but I'll let you tell it. Like, how did you get into rowing across rowing across the Atlantic Ocean?
Same thing. I'd seen a documentary on it, and it was wild. I see these tiny, tiny boats, no engine, people rowing them, and they're rowing across the ocean, and massive waves are coming and just storms. And it's just watching this documentary, I was blown away. I was like, that seems, and it just taking weeks. I was like, I couldn't understand that, couldn't comprehend it. So I was right away like, how can I do this? And I looked, and boats are very expensive. I was like, okay, well, I don't know how I'm going to buy one of these boats. One day I will. Maybe I'll do this race. And it always stayed in the back of my head. I followed. It's a race every year. People do it. Like people will row across the Pacific or the Atlantic or the Indian Ocean or whatever. So I follow ocean rowers. It's a really small community, but just through
Mm.
social media or reading about it in adventure magazines. So I was just kind of always following the sport. And last October, I was working on a ship actually, and I'm sitting on the boat, and the day just ended, and I pulled up social media, and the first post on Instagram was from Rannick Adventures, and they build the boats, and they
Mm.
have a boat called Roxy. It's usually a
Mm.
team of 12, and
Mm.
this was October, and they're like, "Hey, we need some." Or this might have been September, um, and they needed someone starting in December to jump on the team because they had someone drop out. We're taking applications. I
Yeah.
applied right away. Like, I mean, as like I didn't like I don't even think I went to dinner. I was just doing my application and saying I want to be on this team because it was like, here's my opportunity. Like I could make this happen. Been wanting to do it
Yeah.
for years.
Amazing.
The next day I got an email, say we saw your application. We'd like to talk to you on the phone.
Nice.
And I've admitted this. I embellished. I said I rode at the Naval Academy, which I did not.
I love
Um,
it.
but it turns out it was fine because at first I felt a little bad, maybe like, hey, like they're gonna think I'm a great rower, which turns out to be an ocean rower. Having rowed in college or on a crew team has nothing to do with it. The form is like different. You're rocking around. It's just it's like, can you handle doing hard things? Is kind of what they were looking for, and
Mm.
like, yeah, well, you can do hard things. Like you're on the team. Uh,
Nice.
so the team had already rowed in Ireland together, so they all knew each other, and
Mm-hmm.
I met them in the Canary Islands, just right off the west coast of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, we left on December 3rd of 2024. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
2024. And it was just, we took us 6 weeks, and I got everything I saw in that documentary, the big waves, the massive
Nice.
storm, the unbelievably hot, impossible to sleep. I got all that. And there's no safety boat. There's no one coming to get you. We saw that in the entire Atlantic Ocean in that 6 weeks we were out there. I think we saw six other boats, not rowboats, but just like, oil tankers and big, sailboats off in the distance. Um, but it was, yeah, I'm very thankful that they picked me. And that was just a goal that I didn't know how I would ever make that happen. And turns out I was on social media at the right time and I saw that there was a spot open for it.
Yeah, that's funny, man. I was actually doing some research before this, and I think I found that post where I was like looking for one crew member, and I just laughed to myself. I said, "This is the one. It's the one that Keith
Yeah.
replied to and had an email and such." So, good for you, man. So let me give you a little like chicken and the egg question here. With all these ultra endurance events, what do you think begins to crack first, the body or the mind?
100% the mind,
Mm.
hands down. My first, I never won. There was not one point in Buds that I wanted to quit. Like I wanted to do it so bad. I get to my 50 miler, it was fine. First 100 miler, that's the first time in my life I ever wanted to quit. It was, there's no one really relying on me, and my body was okay. I knew I could keep going, but it was just like this is harder than I thought. It's not as fun. I'm getting hungry. My stomach kind of hurts, but the body could totally keep going. So
Mm.
answering your question, it's 100% the mind. In Alaska, there, it's your body never really hurts because you're not really running, you're walking. It's a lot of walking. You are sore, you're definitely, but it'd make a day of working out kind of hard. That's the soreness of the Iditarod. But mentally, nothing matches the Iditarod,
Right.
because it's so cold. I mean, it's scary cold.
Right.
Um, and you're isolated, you're alone.
Yeah.
So it's your mind that's telling you to quit or to stop or to turn around.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, it's definitely the mind that gives up before the body.
Do you have any strategies that you might use to mentally prepare yourself for this type of things?
Kind of, I we kind of talked about like the fundraising and some of the stuff I've done like
Hmm.
that. And all these events that I've done, every ultra, they've all been tied to some charity where I was fundraising for it. And I kind of made it, I made myself accountable to them.
Nice.
Um, because that first 100 that I said I wanted to quit. So the first 50 and the first 100, I actually wasn't raising money for any charity. I was just doing it. But I remember thinking when I wanted to quit on that 100 that no one, like, I didn't owe this to anyone. And not that I do it to owe it to people, but just having a little bit of added, I made a commitment to someone. And that's even now, because there's been some other events like where they weren't endurance events. I was just going out for like doing the Grand Canyon, like the rim to rim to rim. And it wasn't, you know, it was just a self thing that I wanted to do with some friends. But having a little bit of reliability on yourself and holding, like, letting people hold like they're you accountable, that's kind of
Mhm.
how I've gotten through it. I've tied these events to fundraising where it's like, hey, I'm going to do this cool event. I'm telling everyone about it.
Mhm.
And I'm going to try to fundraise for it. And so
Nice.
when I'm posting about it and I'm talking about it and people, I'm putting it out there that I'm going to do it. So then that's kind of where my mind, where it's like, I'm like, hey, maybe I'm going to quit. I'm like,
Mm,
no, because I can't. I told everyone I was gonna do it. So and so donated hundreds of dollars, so donated $1,000. Like, I have to do this.
right.
Um, and because like one, I really want to be there. Like, and I think just adding a little bit of accountability to it, telling people you're gonna do it,
Yeah.
um, talking about it, it makes it more real. It makes it
Right.
that, you know, people are looking at you and no one, they always say no one cares about you more than you care about you.
Right.
And it's true. Like, none of those people would have cared if I quit that 100-mile race or that 200-mile race. They're
Right.
just, they thought it was cool. They gave some money, but to me, it's like, hey, I owe them. I said I was
Right.
going to do it. I'm going to do it.
Yeah. So I mean, that's where like the spotlight effect, where we think that like everyone's thinking of us can
Yeah.
really be
And no one
helpful.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've done the same. That's why I'm careful what I tell people I'm going to do because once I like put it out there, then I'm like, oh no, no, I got to do it, you know. And
Yep.
maybe I'm not 100% doing it. And I've had one DNF. Actually, I take that back. I have two DNFs now, but the one DNF was during 100K in the hot jungle, and I was totally unprepared. And it was a smart DNF because I was getting into like heat exhaustion, heat stroke territory. I was like just trying to save my life. And I remember thinking it wasn't like I could have kept going, especially once I got some food in me and some ice water and got into the air conditioning. I was like, oh no, like I feel like I could have kept going. But then later
Yeah.
on, I read that someone did suffer a massive heat injury and ended up in ICU with kidney failure and the whole nine. So I was like, all right, well, maybe I made the right call after all. And then the second
Yeah.
one was I was injured. I got injured during the race, so I had to. It was just stupid to keep going with a torn calf.
Yeah, and I do have multiple DNFs. I DNF'd that 200 where I didn't, I didn't make it to the checkpoint, and the 1,000-mile attempts on Alaska, I have DNFs, and it's a hard decision, but like, though, there was injury, bad weather, bad trails, like, it would have been not smart to go on. It would have been dangerous, and I don't want anyone listening to think that, oh, you have to, it's like these are events that are dangerous. And anyone out there that's like, even if it's a marathon, it's a 5K, whatever it is, you do have to put your safety above everything else.
Right.
And but I think, there is that fine line between like pushing yourself and then being stupid and getting yourself
Mhm.
into a lot of trouble.
Yeah,
It's
for
you
sure.
have to over the years you kind of like figure out that line. But
Mhm.
yeah, and that's what I tell people all the time. Like, my brother, for example, I think I love his persistence. He's been trying this one. He's been trying to finish a 100-mile. He's got his fourth attempt. He's coming up. He hasn't finished one, but he
Yeah.
keeps trying. And that's what I love about it. It's, you don't have to be a stud who does under 20 miles an hour or 24 hours in a 100-mile race. You just have to keep trying.
Yeah.
And that, and these things are hard. Getting out and doing a 5K is hard. Setting a walking goal is hard. Like, I'm gonna walk a mile a day every day. Like, that's hard stuff to make commitments like that. Um, but it's just it's setting those commitments, and it's okay if it's not the end of the world if you don't make it, but it's at
Yeah.
least that you gave it a shot and you're trying. So and that's what I had to tell myself after those DNFs, because like I remember after my first couple races where I was just like, I'm doing these things great. I'm never gonna DNF ever. And then you DNF and you're like, You have to
Oh,
really look at it. It comes down to the man in the arena, and like, who cares what everyone else says? Is like you went out and tried it. So,
right.
yeah,
It's funny. Yeah, I thought the same thing. Like it's like, wow, what a unique sport where I can go 31 miles through the steaming hot jungle and then have to pull out and feel like a failure. It's like, dude, you still went
yeah,
over a marathon through a jungle that was like 40, it was 42, 44 degrees Celsius. Like it was steaming
uh-huh.
hot. It was ridiculous. Yeah. So, talk to me a little bit about fundraising and Guardian Revival 501(c)(3). You're still working with them?
I've never like officially worked for them. I've been I've fundraised for them, and
Cool.
I their founder, this guy named Alex Othmer, he's a former SEAL, and
Okay.
through mutual friends, I met him, and I was just like, oh, this guy's, he's really gung ho about this, and it was he created Guardian Revival. They're based out of New York, and they're a nonprofit that helps veterans and first responders with mental health.
Cool.
Um, and it's doing things that I was doing, like in the sense of like they had like a hiking group, and they had like, so outdoor recreational therapy, they had canine therapy, music therapy, like things that I was interested in too, not just like, they just had a bunch of different avenues to try, and they were, getting some fundraising. And it was the first Iditarod that I partnered with them, or my second Iditarod. I was like, hey, I'm going to give this an attempt. And I reached out and I was like, hey, if you guys make me a fundraising page, I'll blast it over social media and an email to everyone I know, and
Yeah.
try to get on the news or whatever. But it was like, he was so passionate about what he was doing. And,
Mhm.
I'd started to see make that transition from military to now, civilian life, and seeing that it was a hard transition. And I was like, here's some guy doing something about this. He
Yeah.
started a nonprofit, and I was like, I want to help them out. And so that's where it started. And I've been really lucky over the years to partner with them because they've always had my back, and like,
Mm.
helping me maybe get to an event or something like that, or like, hey, we'll try to sponsor you. And some of this stuff is, it costs a lot, or you have to travel or things like that. And
Yeah.
so they've been really great to me, and I've just worked my butt off to try to fundraise for them.
Yeah.
And now it's close to $500,000 that I've been able to fundraise for them.
Dude, that
Um,
is that is insane. That's amazing, man. Because
yeah,
I think I saw the post where you were like, your aim was significantly lower than that, right? Weren't you aiming for like, hey, I just want to raise like only, but I want to raise 25,000 or
yeah,
something.
I think that funder's got like 300,000 or something like that.
Yeah, that's amazing,
Yeah.
man. Wow. Have you ever thought about like what do you think it is that like resonates so much with donors about you and your journey? And
Um, I don't know. Maybe I think because in the past and some of the things maybe I've talked about, um, I think maybe with that one, it's that, hey, I'm a veteran. I transitioned out. It was hard for me, and I'll admit that it was hard for me. Um, but I haven't given up, maybe in the sense that like I'm going to try this hard thing, and there's a good chance I'll fail. Like I failed the Iditarod twice, um, and I've also had I've been very grateful to have donation matching from companies. I've been grateful to, one of my best friends' wife works for the news and would get me on the news.
yeah,
So I was able, I had a lot of reach. That's what helped me a lot in those, and being willing to tell my story, and really focus. And I didn't want the attention on me. I wanted the attention on the organization. And
mm,
I didn't want to be an athlete that's like doing all the stuff for like to pat myself on the back. Like I did this hard event. I wanted to tie it with something that was bigger than all of us, like something that's like, the 22 veterans a day commit suicide, and more first responders commit suicide than die in the line of duty, doing their actual job. So there is an issue here. And if I could draw the attention to that, and yeah, maybe I tie it with something that I'm doing that people think is cool. So they see, oh, wow, this guy's doing the Iditarod or something. This guy's going to row across the ocean. But, oh, wow, he's doing it for this something that is a problem. Oh, yeah, I'll give some money to that. Or I'll share it with friends, or my company's going to do donation matching.
yeah,
So I think and it's hard to ask for money.
right,
But I'm asking for money. I'm asking for money for the organization, you know?
right, yeah. It's amazing, man. I think people resonate with you because you, like you said, you're vulnerable. You talk about your challenges, you talked about your struggles, but then you also you're not giving up, and that's amazing. I think people love that. I think folks like see themselves in that. They see themselves in that. They like everyone loves the underdog, and in a way, like Keith, like even though you've done all this amazing stuff, you're still like in a way an underdog who's like had some struggles and then keeps coming back for more. Like is not going to quit, just keeps coming back. It's amazing, man. It's an amazing story of resilience and how we can take our passion and turning it into purpose. And with the board that we share with Consequence of Habit, we talk a lot in there about connection, purpose, and challenge is like the three pillars within that. And I think you really exemplify those. So amazing stuff, man. Appreciate it. I think we're getting towards the end. I wanted to give you one last question. This is what we call the billboard question, and I stole this for Tim Ferriss. So, Tim, if you're listening to this podcast, I admit I stole it from you. But the billboard question is that if you had a billboard and it would be anywhere in the world, but this billboard, a billion people will see this billboard. And on the billboard, there could be words, there could be a quote, be a quote from you or from somebody, or there could even be a picture. It can be anything on this billboard. What would be on that billboard?
It's funny because right now I'm serving in the Peace Corps, and it is hard, uh, you know. And we have a sign in the Peace Corps office in Dominica where I'm living, and
Mhm.
and I saw this sign on a day where I was like kind of down. Uh, I don't have air. This is like, this is just first world problems of what I'm about to admit. And it's like I didn't have air conditioning. I don't have a car. I'm waiting on the bus system, which is, I love it. It's like, but you never know when the bus is going to be there. There's kind of no certain bus stop, and I didn't, the grocery store closes early. Sometimes the market's not open. There's just all these problems that I was just complaining, and there was a sign in the Peace Corps office. I saw it, and it said, "Not home, sweet home. Adjust." And it's that adjust part that I wish you could be on a billboard where anyone can see it, and it could be whatever. Maybe it's not home sweet home, but whatever it is, and
Mm,
it could adapt. Maybe you could change, adjust for adapt,
mhm,
and it's just adapting to whatever situation you're in. I think a lot of people, they build that comfort zone, and that's their comfort zone, and they're going to stay there forever, but you won't see any change or growth.
mhm.
So for me, I guess it's two things. It's the billboard would say, nothing grows inside your comfort zone.
Yeah,
Step out of your comfort zone and adapt.
nice.
And that's where you'll see growth, in my opinion. That's what I mean. For me, that's what it is, because telling you like how hard the Peace Corps is, but it's just like, okay, I just got to adapt. There's actually nothing wrong with this. Like, all my neighbors, they don't have air conditioning. That like they deal with the market, they deal with the bus, and it's fine. You just adapt.
Yeah,
So for me, my comfort zone was America. It was living here. It was, having a car, having a bus system that I knew, where it's like, here's the bus stop. And yeah, they don't
right.
do it like their market maybe says open, but it's closed, and whatever. So I stepped out of my comfort zone and I adapted, and I'm seeing personal growth from that. So
It's
that's what my
amazing.
billboard would say. It'd say, step out of your comfort zone, because nothing grows in the comfort zone. Once you step out, adapt, create a new comfort zone, and then keep going. Keep it stepping out and adapting.
I love it. Keep stepping out and adapting. I love it, man. Good stuff, Keith. Dude, thank you so much for coming on, man. It's an amazing story, amazing podcast. I think the listeners are going to get a lot out of it. Before we get off, though, anything you want to plug, like what's next on the horizon for you, and maybe where folks can find you if they want to connect with you?
On the horizon, it's this is my first time in my life where I'm kind of going back to school full time. I'm after the Peace Corps. I'm doing an MBA program in Arizona. So that's 21 months. So I'll kind of be in that school mode, but I'm going to take advantage of the spring breaks and the winter breaks to go do some I still want to do some fundraising, and I have some trips in mind that I'd like to do, some bigger bicycle trips that I'm kind of planning out in my head. Nothing's secure yet, or nothing's like, set in stone, but I do have some big adventure trips because, while I'm in the Peace Corps, it's kind of, working every day, and I'm living my island life.
Mm.
So I'm ready to, get to school, focus on that, and try to do as good as I can, and then, but still use my time to, adventure and fundraise for nonprofits.
Yeah,
And
nice.
then I'm on social medias, LinkedIn, Keith Eckert, Instagram, Keith Eckert, and yeah, reach out anytime.
Awesome, man. I will get those links to you, your profiles on socials, in the show notes if anyone's interested in reaching out to Keith. Awesome, man. Thanks again. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Chris. It's always great chatting with you, man.